The autumn wind cut sharp through the main street of Cedar Ridge, Texas. Dust swirled in small whirlwinds, stinging the eyes of anyone caught outside too long. The wooden fronts of the buildings groaned in the dry breeze, their boards sun-faded and weathered by years of hard survival. On the steps of Miller's General Store sat Mary Whitfield, her shawl drawn tight around herself and her little girl. Clara, just 7 years old, leaned against her mother's side. She shivered, though the wool wrapped around her. Mary's stomach nodded at her daughter's small whisper. "Mama, I'm hungry." Her heart broke at the sound. Clara's big blue eyes, so much like her late father's, stared up at her with trust and hope. Mary smoothed back the child's tangled blonde hair, forcing her voice to stay calm. "I know, sweetheart, just a little longer." But the truth pressed hard. Their handful of coins had run out yesterday. For 3 days she had begged for work, sewing, cooking, washing. But Cedar Ridge was small and everyone had their own troubles. Doors closed kindly at first, then firmly. Bootsteps echoed on the boardwalk, steady and heavy. Mary lifted her chin, clutching Clara closer. A tall man was walking toward them, his wide-brimmed hat shadowing a weathered face. His shoulders filled his coat and the spurs on his boots jingled softly with every step. Ethan Cole had come to town for supplies, as he did every 2 weeks. He could usually pass through without more than a nod to neighbors, but today his eyes caught on. The young woman and child huddled against the store. Desperation wasn't rare in Texas, yet there was something about the way this woman held her head high, even as she trembled from hunger and weariness. He tipped his hat. "Ma'am." Mary stiffened. Sir Ethan studied them quietly. The woman was younger than he'd first thought, maybe 25. Dark hair tucked into a plain bun, a dress showing the miles of hard travel. The girl pressed against her side looked worse. Her cheeks hollow, her dress thin, her small hands clutched into fists for warmth. "You new to Cedar Ridge?" Ethan asked. "Yes, sir. We arrived Monday." Her pride battled with desperation. "We're looking for work." "Work's hard to come by for a woman alone." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Mary said quickly, steadying her voice. Ethan shifted his weight as if making up his mind. "Ethan Cole, I run the Double C Ranch about 5 miles north." Mary waited, her heart thudding with something that felt a lot like hope. He took off his hat, running a hand through dark hair. "I'm a widower. Lost my wife 2 years back. Got a daughter, Sarah, she's 9. I need help raising her, keeping house." His gray eyes locked on hers, voice plain as the dirt under their feet. "Your daughter needs a home and my bed needs a wife." Mary froze, her face flushing hot. Her arm tightened around Clara. People passing slowed, ears pricking for gossip. "How dare you?" she whispered, standing. "Hear me out." Ethan raised a hand. "I'm not some scoundrel. I mean proper marriage, legal and right. A home for you and your girl and a wife for me. Out here folks do it all the time. Mail-order brides, arranged matches. I'm just putting it plain." Mary sank back onto the step, her legs weak. "You're proposing marriage to a stranger. Strangers don't stay strangers for long when life depends on it." His voice stayed steady, but there was something raw in it too. "I've got 300 acres cattle, a house with a roof that don't leak. It's not riches, but it's safe. Your girl would have food and schooling. You'd have a place. And I'd have a partner." Clara lifted her head, eyes wide. "Mama, does he really have a house?" Ethan's stern face softened as he looked at her. "I do, little one. With a big kitchen and a fireplace taller than your mama." Mary's chest ached. Her child hadn't eaten in 2 days and winter was coming fast. She thought of Colorado, of the men her late husband had owed money to, the ones who might still be searching. They couldn't go back. They had nowhere else to go. "I need to think," she whispered. "Fair enough." Ethan reached into his vest and pressed coins into her hand. Mary tried to push them back, but his hand was firm. "Get yourselves a meal at Murphy's. I'll be loading supplies for the next hour. If you want, I'll take you to see the ranch. No promises, no tricks, just come see it." And just like that, he walked away, leaving Mary staring down at the silver in her palm. That evening, after hot stew and bread that filled Clara's belly for the first time in days, Mary found herself climbing into Ethan Cole's wagon. The girl nestled against her side, chattering about the promised fireplace and kittens and barns. "You don't have to decide today," Ethan said as he took the reins. "Just meet Sarah, see the place. If it's not right, I'll bring you back. No questions asked." Mary nodded, her fingers clutching the edge of the wagon seat. The sun was sinking low, spilling the prairie in golden shadow. She stole a glance at the man beside her. He wasn't handsome in the polished way of city men, but there was a steadiness about him, a strength like the mountains in the distance. "Why offer this to us?" she asked softly. His eyes stayed on the rutted trail. "Because I know what it is to be alone, and because my girl's running wild without a woman's hand to guide her. And maybe—" His voice dropped lower, rougher. "Maybe because I'm tired of talking to cattle in the wind." For the first time in months, Mary felt her lips twitch toward a smile. The wagon crested a rise and Ethan pointed ahead. "There it is, the double C." Mary's breath caught. A sturdy two-story house stood against the endless sky, smoke rising from its chimney. Not fancy, but solid, the kind of place where roots could grow. For the first time since fleeing Colorado, Mary felt something inside her ease. Beside her, Clara Ara whispered, eyes wide with wonder, "Is this our home now, Mama?" Quote. Mary could only hold her close, torn between fear and hope as the wagon rolled on toward whatever waited next. The wagon rolled to a stop in front of the ranch house, just as the last light of day burned along the horizon before Mary could gather her thoughts. The front door swung open. A girl came running out, her dark braids flying. She was tall for 9, sturdy like her father with the same piercing gray eyes. She skidded to a halt, staring at the strangers climbing down from the wagon. "Papa, who are they?" she asked, her voice curious, not shy. Ethan lifted Clara down carefully, surprising Mary with his gentleness. "Sarah, this is Mrs. Whitfield and her daughter Clara. They'll be visiting a while." Sarah's sharp eyes flicked from her father to Mary, then to Clara. "Are you the new housekeeper?" Papa said. Mary felt heat rise in her cheeks, but Ethan's voice carried a firm note. "Sarah," the girl frowned but said, "No more." Instead, she studied Clara like a young culting a new companion. "How old are you?" 7, Clara whispered, still clinging to Mary's skirt. "I'm 9, Sarah said proudly. "Do you know how to ride?" Clara shook her head. "Well, you'll learn here. Papa says every girl should ride like she belongs on the land." Mary followed them inside, her heart thudding with every step. The house was just as Ethan had promised. Solid walls, a wide hearth, a kitchen that smelled faintly of coffee and wood smoke. It was clean but plain. No curtains, no flowers, only sturdy furniture, and one photograph of a kind-eyed woman who must have been Ethan's late wife. Ethan busied himself awkwardly in the kitchen. "Coffee for you, milk for the girls." "Coffee is fine," Mary said softly. She sat at the table, watching her daughter slowly loosen her grip as Sarah showed her a carved wooden horse. Their giggles filled the room, soft but full of promise. Finally, Ethan cleared his throat. He set a steaming mug before her, then leaned against the counter, his expression unreadable. "I reckon I should explain myself better than I did in town." Mary wrapped her hands around the mug, waiting. "My wife Margaret died of fever back. We lost a second child that same day." His voice was rough but steady. "Since then, I've managed best I could. But Sarah needs more than a father who barely knows how to braid hair. And this ranch, it needs a woman's touch as much as I do." Quote, "Mary swallowed hard, Mr. Cole. Your offer was crude," he finished for her, nodding. "I know it was, but I'm not a man who dances around words. What I meant was simple. I need a partner, a wife, and I'd offer you and your daughter my name, my home, and my protection." The words hung in the warm air, simple as the crackle of the fire. Mary's hands trembled around her cup. "You don't even know us." "I know enough," Ethan said. His gray eyes were steady on hers. "You've got pride, but not too much to work. You've got a daughter who trusts you, which tells me the kind of mother you are, and I saw how folks turned you away in town. It wasn't for lack of trying. You're strong, Mrs. Whitfield, stronger than most. That's the kind of woman I need beside me." Mary's throat tightened. No man had spoken to her like that before, not even her late husband, who had offered charm but never steadiness. She thought of Clara's thin shoulders, of the debts left behind in Colorado, of the long, hungry nights that stretched ahead if she refused. "Why us?" she asked at last, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's gaze flicked toward his daughter, who was now teaching Clara how to make the carved horse trot across the table. "Because when I saw you sitting there holding your chin up, though you had nothing left, you reminded me of Margaret. Not in looks, in spirit. And because I believe a man knows when the right chance crosses his path, I won't let this one ride past." Silence fell, broken only by the girls. Laughter. At last, Ethan spoke again, softer now. "Stay tonight. See the ranch tomorrow. Meet the hands. See the land. If it doesn't suit, I'll take you back to town myself. But if it does—" He paused, his eyes steady on hers. "Then we'll talk about making this house your home." Mary looked down at Clara, who was smiling for the first time in weeks, her small hands clutching the wooden horse as Sarah chattered beside her. Something inside Mary cracked, fragile but certain. "One night," she whispered. "We'll see what tomorrow brings." Ethan's jaw eased just a fraction. He tipped his hat slightly, though it was already resting on the counter. Fair enough. That night, as Mary lay awake in the guest room, Clara curled warmly against her. She listened to the wind brushing against the ranch house. The scent of woodsome smoke lingered in the air, and for the first time since her husband's death, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was a place left in this world for her and her daughter. She closed her eyes, torn between fear and hope, knowing that tomorrow's dawn might change everything. Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know. Morning came early at the Double C Ranch. The Ruers' cry rang out across the prairie, followed by the lowing of cattle and the clatter of hooves in the corral. Mary rose quietly, careful not to wake Clara, and peered out the small guest room window. The land stretched endlessly, bathed in the pink light of dawn. For a moment she simply breathed it in, the sight both terrifying in its vastness and comforting in its steadiness. A knock at the door startled her. "Breakfast's ready," Sarah's voice called. "Papa says, come hungry." Mary smiled faintly. She helped Clara dress, and together they went downstairs. The kitchen smelled of bacon and fresh biscuits. Ethan was at the stove, sleeves rolled to his elbows, moving with the efficiency of a man long used to doing things alone. "Morning," he said gruffly, but his eyes softened when they met hers. "Sit, eat." The girls chattered like old friends, Sarah teaching Clara the names of every horse in the barn. Mary listened, torn between caution and the tug of belonging that pressed heavier with every passing moment. After breakfast, Ethan showed her the ranch. He walked her past the barn, the smokehouse, the chicken coop. 6 men worked the land with him, their nods respectful when Ethan introduced her as his guest. Mary noticed the way the man looked at Ethan, with trust, with loyalty. This was a man who led not with charm but with steadiness. By midday, Mary found herself kneeling in the overgrown garden, running the rich soil through her fingers. "It could grow again," she murmured. "It's yours if you stay," Ethan said quietly beside her. Mary looked up at him, his gray eyes serious but not pressing. Her heart ached with the weight of choice. Safety for Clara, a partnership for herself, a future that could be solid if not certain. But before she could answer, the sound of horses thundered across the yard. Ethan stiffened. 3 riders approached fast, their faces hard, their eyes colder still. Mary's blood turned to ice. She recognized their type, the kind of men who had haunted her past. The leader swung down from his horse, a thin man with a cruel smile. "We're looking for a woman, Mary Whitfield. Word is, she's been seen here." Mary's breath caught. Clara clutched her hand tight. Ethan stepped forward, rifle in hand, his voice calm but firm. "This here's my place, and the woman inside is my intended wife. Any business you thought you had with her is over." The man's eyes narrowed. "Debt don't die with a husband, Cole. Jake Morrison, don't forget what's owed. Then he can take it up with me," Ethan said, his jaw like stone. "But I'll tell you plain, this woman and her girl are under my protection now. You want to try taking her? You'll find the whole Double C standing in your way." Mary's heart pounded as ranch hands appeared from the bunkhouse, rifles at the ready. The air was tight with danger. The men glared, spat tobacco into the dust, then mounted up again. "We'll be back," the leader warned. "And when we do, we'll want proof of that marriage." Ethan's voice rang clear. "You'll have it." The riders thundered away, leaving silence heavy in their wake. Mary trembled, her knees weak. Ethan turned to her, eyes steady. "I'm sorry. I know I said you'd have time to decide. But those men will return, and the only way to keep you and Clara safe is to make it official." Mary's throat tightened. This wasn't the way she'd wanted to choose, but the truth was undeniable. Ethan had stood for her when no one else would. He had drawn a line in the dirt and claimed her as his own, not with false promises, but with the steady courage of a man who meant every word. Clara tugged her sleeve. "Mama," she whispered, "can we stay, please?" Mary looked at her daughter's hopeful eyes, then at Ethan, solid, steady, unflinching. For the first time since her husband's death, she felt the ground beneath her feet firming into something like hope. "All right," she whispered. "We'll marry." Relief flickered across Ethan's face, though he kept his composure. He nodded once, firm and final. Tomorrow we'll go into town and see the preacher. Mary exhaled shakily. This wasn't the love story she had dreamed of as a girl. It wasn't romance spun with pretty words or promises. But as Clara slipped her small hand into Sarah's, and as Ethan's steady presence stood like a wall against the storm of her past, Mary realized something she had never dared to believe. Perhaps in this wild, untamed land, the strongest kind of love wasn't born from fancy courtship at all. Perhaps it was built like the double C itself. Sturdy, weathered, unyielding. A love not of chance, but of choice. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and like for more emotional Wild West tales every